Before we dive into today's story, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. And don't forget to stick around until the end to rate this story from 0 to 10. Now, let's begin. The moment Emily steps out of her car, the cool evening air presses against her skin, carrying the faint scent of rosemary and grilled steak drifting from the restaurant's patio. Her stomach tightens. She tells herself it's just dinner, just a simple, harmless catch-up meal her ex insisted on. But the truth sits heavy in her chest. Ryan never does anything without a reason, and none of his reasons ever end with her feeling okay. She smooths a wrinkle in her navy dress, checks that her sleeves are straight, and forces a breath deep enough to steady the tremor in her hands. She hates that she's shaking. She hates that one text from him. "We need to talk." Dinner? 7 p.m. could pull her back into this familiar anxiety. She hates that some part of her agreed out of habit rather than desire. She pushes the door open, stepping into the warm glow of pendant lights and soft jazz, and the hum of conversation wraps around her like a net. The hostess smiles politely, but Emily barely registers it, because she already spots Ryan at a table near the window, leaning back in his chair, as if he owns the place. He doesn't see her yet. He's too busy laughing at something on his phone, loudly, obnoxiously, the way he always does when he's performing for an audience. Emily steels herself and walks forward, each step careful and quiet, wishing she could shrink out of existence. The closer she gets, the more she notices the details she used to ignore. The crisp white shirt he unbuttons one too many buttons, the expensive watch he bought on credit, the arrogant tilt of his chin. When he finally looks up and spots her, Ryan's smile stretches too wide, dripping with a sweetness she knows isn't real. "Em," he says, loudly, drawing the attention of the couple seated behind him. "Finally. You took forever. You know I hate waiting." She sits without responding, folding her hands in her lap to stop them from fidgeting. She hears the clink of silverware, the low murmur of voices, the distant sound of a server opening a bottle of wine. Everything feels too bright, too exposed. A woman in a red dress at the bar glances toward their table, then away quickly. Emily recognizes the look, curiosity mixed with mild pity, but she doesn't know why it's aimed at her. She hasn't even said a word yet. "So," Ryan begins, leaning forward with his elbows on the table, "I invited someone." The words drop into her stomach like stones. She tenses, her shoulders instinctively drawing inward. "Someone?" "Yeah," he grins, satisfied with her reaction. "A friend? Well, more like a business connection. Thought it might be good for you to meet someone successful for a change." Heat creeps into her cheeks. Not anger. Humiliation. His favorite weapon. She glances toward the entrance, where a tall man in a tailored charcoal suit steps inside. He moves with quiet confidence, scanning the room with an expression that's unreadable, but somehow commanding. Dark hair, broad shoulders, hands tucked casually into his pockets. The hostess speaks to him, but his gaze shifts past her, sweeping the restaurant as if he's searching for something, or someone. For a second, Emily thinks he's looking straight at her. But she forces herself to look away. Ridiculous. Men like him never look at women like her. Ryan continues talking, but his voice blurs into background noise. The stranger crosses the room, moving with slow, deliberate steps, not flashy or attention-seeking like Ryan, but somehow impossible to ignore. The staff's posture shifts subtly as he passes. Respect, maybe fear, maybe curiosity. He stops near the private dining area, speaking quietly to a server who nods quickly as if receiving instructions. The server disappears through a side door. Emily's pulse steadies, not from comfort, but from distraction. Watching the stranger feels easier than listening to Ryan's voice dripping condescension. "You're not even listening," Ryan snaps, loud enough that the couple behind them looks up. Emily flinches. "Sorry," she murmurs. Ryan smirks. "Whatever. Look, Em, I know things didn't work out between us because you couldn't keep up with my lifestyle. But I'm not cruel. I wanted to give you another chance to show you can handle yourself with people who matter." The humiliation sharpens like ice under her skin. She feels small, stupid, angry at herself for coming. She forces her lips into a polite line and stares down at the linen tablecloth, tracing the pattern with her eyes. But before she can form a quiet excuse to leave, a shadow falls across the table. A presence, heavy, controlled. She looks up slowly, breath catching. It's him. The stranger from the entrance, standing at their table. Up close, he's even more commanding. Sharp jawline dusted with stubble, eyes impossibly calm, but carrying something dangerous beneath the surface, like a storm held behind glass. He doesn't look at Ryan, he looks at Emily. Only her. His voice is low, smooth, warm enough to send a small shiver down her spine. "Are you all right?" Emily blinks. Once, twice. Words fail her. Ryan scoffs, shifting in his seat. Can we help you?" The man finally glances at him, a flicker of recognition, or maybe dismissal, passing through his eyes. Then he turns back to Emily, waiting for her answer, as if Ryan never spoke. She swallows. Yes. I'm fine." The man studies her for a moment longer, his gaze steady, almost protective. "If you change your mind," he says quietly, "I'll be right over there." He gestures toward a table in the corner, where two men in dark suits sit with their backs straight and their attention sharp. Security. Or something close to it. Ryan mutters something under his breath, but Emily doesn't hear it. Her heartbeat thrums in her ears, a strange mix of fear and relief swirling in her chest, because for the first time tonight, she doesn't feel completely alone. Emily watches him walk away, trying to pull her breath back into her lungs, as if he took the air with him. His presence lingers in the space around her, a quiet vibration under her skin that refuses to settle. She sits a little straighter, without meaning to, her fingers brushing the edge of her water glass just to keep them grounded. Ryan laughs, short, sharp, mocking. What was that? Did he think you needed rescuing? He shakes his head and reaches for his wine, swirling it carelessly. These upscale places draw all kinds of weirdos. But Emily can still feel the echo of that man's gaze, steady, protective, cutting through Ryan's noise like a calm blade. She's not used to people noticing her distress, let alone stepping in. With Ryan, she learned how to look fine, even when she wasn't. With him, weakness became ammunition used against her later. She glances toward the corner table. The man hasn't sat down yet. He's standing now, one hand on the back of his chair, speaking quietly to the two men seated with him. His posture is relaxed, but the tension in the room shifts around him like an invisible tide. He's not a guy in a suit. He's someone people make room for without being told. Someone whose presence shapes the air. The server approaches their table, placing a basket of warm bread between them. Ryan smirks at Emily again, annoyed by her distraction. Can we try to focus? You're spacing out like always. She forces herself to look at him, her throat tightening under the weight of old habits. What did you want to talk about? Ryan's grin widens. She immediately regrets asking. Well, he says, leaning back and tapping his fingers on the table as if setting a rhythm. A lot has changed since we broke up. I've been working on my business, networking, moving up. Of course, this dinner was never about closure. It was about showing off. He launches into a monologue about his promotions, his new contacts, how people admire him now, how he's been hanging around real money. Emily feels her jaw go tight, her heartbeat dulling into a quiet throb behind her ribs. He talks like someone stacking bricks around himself, building a tower no one asked for. Finally, he pauses long enough to sip his drink. "Anyway," he says, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand, "I figured seeing me tonight might motivate you, show you the kind of circles I'm moving in, help you realize what you missed." The words sting more than she wants to admit. Her cheeks warm with embarrassment she can't quite control. She hates that he still has this effect on her. She hates that she can't snap back or walk away, even though she wants to. But before she can respond, a small commotion ripples from the front entrance. A server hurries toward the corner table, the man's table, holding a folded note. The server hands it to him nervously. The man takes it without expression, unfolds it with one hand, and reads it slowly. His jaw flexes. Something shifts in his eyes, calculated, deadly anger locked behind absolute stillness. Emily watches him slip the note into his pocket before lifting his gaze directly to their table. Her stomach flips. He's looking at her again. No, not at her. At Ryan, as if measuring him, as if already knowing the outcome. Ryan follows her line of sight and scoffs. "What? You're staring at him now?" he snaps. "Do you know him or something?" "No," she says quickly, but her voice comes out softer than intended. Ryan rolls his eyes dramatically and waves a hand in dismissal. "Who cares? Look, my guy should be here any minute. He's someone important. I told him to drop by so he can see what you're like. Maybe throw some opportunities your way if you're not awkward." Emily's stomach twists. This was a setup, a performance. She opens her mouth to say she wants to leave, but Ryan lifts his hand sharply. "Don't start," he warns. The tone is familiar. Too familiar. The tone that taught her silence. The tone that made her feel small. But tonight, something is different. The man in the corner hasn't looked away. He's watching every detail of their table with quiet precision. His gaze is an anchor pulling her away from the spiral she's falling into. Without fully meaning to, she inhales slowly, letting the air steady her. For the first time in a long time, she doesn't fold. "Ryan," she says, her voice firmer now. "This isn't—" "There he is!" Ryan cuts her off, waving excitedly toward the entrance. Emily turns, expecting another version of Ryan, loud, arrogant, polished. Instead, a heavy-set man in a leather jacket walks in, sharp eyes scanning the room before he nods at Ryan. He looks rough, too rough for a fancy restaurant. He joins their table without asking permission. "This her?" he asks, looking Emily over like she's merchandise. Ryan beams like a salesman. "Yup. Emily. I told you she's trying to get her life together." The stranger at the corner table shifts slightly. Emily sees it from the corner of her eye, the subtle tilt of his head, the slow tightening of his jaw. The new man leans back, smirking. "Ryan said you're sweet, but lacking direction. Maybe I can point you somewhere useful." Emily freezes. The insult lands like a slap she didn't see coming. Her breath catches as heat rises behind her eyes. She tries to blink it away, but her vision blurs. Ryan laughs, loudly, cruelly. "Relax, Em. It's a compliment." No, it isn't. And for the first time in years, she feels something stronger than fear pushing through her. Anger. Her chest tightens as Ryan's friend continues listing his opinions about her. Soft voice. No confidence. No ambition. A burden. Unremarkable. Each word feels like a hand pressing her down. Ryan laughs harder, proud of himself. She stands abruptly. Her chair scrapes against the floor, loud enough to cut through the surrounding chatter. Ryan's laughter stops. "Sit down," he hisses, shocked. But she doesn't. She can't. Not anymore. Before she can speak, a shadow falls across the table. A familiar presence. The air thickens. The man in the charcoal suit stands beside her, so close she can feel the warmth radiating from him. He doesn't look at Ryan, or the friend, or anyone else. Only her. Calm. Focused. Dangerous in a quiet way that feels like safety. "Come with me," he says softly. Not a command. A choice wrapped in protection. Emily's breath shudders. Ryan explodes. "Hey, back off!" "She's here with me!" The man turns his head slightly. Just slightly. But it's enough to freeze Ryan mid-sentence. His eyes harden into something cold and final. "No," he says. "She isn't." And he offers his hand. Slow. Steady. Certain. Emily stares at it, her heart pounding so hard she can feel it in her fingertips. For the first time tonight. Someone is reaching for her, not to control her, but to pull her out. She exhales shakily. Then she places her hand in his. Emily barely has time to register the warmth of his hand before he gently guides her away from the table, his touch firm enough to steady her, but careful enough to let her pull back if she chooses. She doesn't. Her legs feel unsteady, the room spinning with the weight of everything that just happened. She hears Ryan sputtering behind them, his voice rising, tripping over his own outrage, but none of it reaches her clearly. All she hears is her own heartbeat and the quiet, controlled exhale of the man leading her toward the far corner of the restaurant. He stops only when they reach a quieter section near the back wall. Dim lighting, soft music, a space that feels cocooned from the rest of the world. Only then does he turn to her, releasing her hand gently, as if afraid to startle her. "Look at me," he says softly. She does, and the world slows down. Up close, his eyes are an impossible shade of dark brown, deep, observant, carrying something restrained behind them. Strength, patience, danger, but not directed at her. Never at her. "Are you injured?" he asks. Injured. The word makes her blink. It's strange hearing it in a restaurant instead of an ER. She shakes her head. "No. I'm just overwhelmed." His jaw tightens. "He humiliated you." The words hit harder than expected. She didn't realize anyone else would see it that plainly, let alone say it out loud with no hesitation. "I'm sorry," she murmurs instinctively, immediately wishing she hadn't. His gaze sharpens. "You don't apologize for someone else's cruelty?" Her breath stutters. No one has ever corrected her like that, with gentleness, not irritation. He gestures toward an empty booth tucked in the corner, where the lighting is warm and golden, spilling across the table like a soft spotlight. "Sit," he says, calmly, almost kindly. She hesitates only a second before sliding into the booth. He sits across from her, leaning forward, forearms resting on the table, every movement deliberate, protective, grounded. For a moment, neither speaks. The silence isn't uncomfortable. It feels like a pause for breath after drowning. He studies her with a quiet intensity, not prying but observing, as if learning her expression one detail at a time. Emily swallows. "Thank you for stepping in." He nods once, slow and deliberate. "You didn't look like you wanted to be there." "I didn't," she admits. "But I haven't figured out how to not let him pull me back." His eyes soften, but his voice remains steady. "You did. You stood up." Her pulse trips. She did. For the first time, she did. They both glance briefly toward the other side of the restaurant. Ryan is still sitting, but he's no longer laughing. His friend looks tense, glancing toward the kitchen exit as if debating whether to leave. The man across from her returns his attention to her. Ignore them. She tries. She really does. But the nerves in her chest still tremble, like her body expects Ryan to storm over and cause another scene. The man senses it. She sees the recognition in the way he studies her shoulders, the slight rigidity in her posture. "What's your name?" he asks gently. "Emily." He nods once, as if committing it to memory. "I'm Luca." The name fits him. Sharp, commanding, built from syllables that feel like they carry weight in every room they're spoken. Emily lowers her gaze to her hands, noticing the slight shake she's been trying to hide. She curls her fingers into her palms to keep them steady. "Do you want to leave?" Luca asks quietly. The question lands like a lifeline. "I do," she whispers. "But I drove here with him." Luca's expression hardens for half a second, then smooths back into something calm. "Then you're not leaving with him." She swallows. "He'll make a scene." "He won't," Luca says. There's no uncertainty in his tone. "Not with me here." The room seems to quiet around them, as if the air itself understands he isn't making a threat. He's stating a fact. Emily lifts her eyes. "Why did you come over?" His answer is immediate. "Because you were being belittled in public, and no one should sit through that alone." A simple answer. A devastating one. Her throat tightens, emotion rising unexpectedly. She blinks it back quickly, embarrassed to show anything vulnerable. Luca notices. "You don't have to hide that," he murmurs. "You've held too much inside already." Her breath catches. She wants to deny it, but her voice refuses to form the lie. A server approaches timidly. "Can I get you anything?" Luca looks to Emily first, waiting. The small gesture, offering her the choice, makes her chest tighten for entirely different reasons. "Just water," she says. Luca nods at the server. "2 waters, and bring her a warm towel." Emily's brows lift. "A towel?" "You're shaking," he says quietly. She looks down. She is. She hadn't even realized. The server returns quickly with the towel, placing it gently in front of her. Emily presses it into her hands, letting the heat sink into her skin, grounding her nerves. Luca watches her carefully, not possessively, not with expectation. Just present. "Has he always spoken to you like that?" he asks after a moment. Emily exhales slowly. "Yes. He has a way of making everything sound like he's doing me a favor." Luca's jaw works in a slow, controlled movement. Men like him only understand consequences. Her heart flips. "You don't have to get involved." "I'm not involved," Luca interrupts. "I'm sitting with a woman who was mistreated. That's not involvement. That's decency." She meets his gaze, surprised to find warmth there. So unexpected in someone who looks like he carries the weight of a darker world. Before she can respond, movement catches her attention. Ryan is pushing back his chair, shoulders stiff with anger, heading toward them. Her chest tightens. Luca doesn't turn to look. He simply says, "He won't touch you. I'm right here." She believes him before she even understands why. Ryan stops beside the table, trying to mask his irritation with a forced laugh. "Emily, can we talk? Alone?" "No," Luca says before she can. Ryan snaps toward him. "I wasn't talking to you." Luca lifts his eyes slowly, calmly. "You are now." Something in his tone makes Ryan falter. Emily straightens, something warm flickering inside her chest, a strength she hasn't felt in a long time. "I'm not going anywhere with you, Ryan," she says, her voice steady. Ryan stares at her, stunned. "You're what? Choosing him?" She doesn't look at Luca. She doesn't need to. The answer rises on its own, natural and certain. "I'm choosing myself." Luca watches her with quiet pride. Ryan opens his mouth to argue, but before he can speak, the manager approaches. "Sir, we need to discuss the disturbance you caused earlier." Ryan stiffens. His friend at the table looks away quickly, pretending not to know him. Luca finally speaks again, soft but absolute. Your night is over. Ryan's face reddens, but he doesn't argue. He turns and walks out, shoulders tense, anger strangled into silence. The moment the door closes behind him, Emily feels something in her chest loosen, like the first breath of air after being underwater too long. She turns back to Luca, her voice barely above a whisper. Thank you. His gaze softens. You don't owe me anything. But the tremble in her breath says she feels something shift anyway. Something small and fragile, but undeniably new. Emily stays seated across from Luca as the lingering tension dissolves slowly, like smoke drifting out an open window. The restaurant noise resumes, clinking glasses, soft laughter, the muted shuffle of footsteps, but everything feels quieter to her now, calmer, as if someone finally dialed down the volume on the world she's been drowning in. The warm towel in her hands has cooled, but her fingers no longer tremble. Luca watches her with a steady, patient expression, as though he's waiting for her breathing to fully settle before speaking again. He doesn't rush her. He doesn't fill the silence with noise. He simply waits. And somehow, that's more comforting than anything else could have been. When she finally looks up, he asks gently, "Better?" She nods. "Yeah, I think so." He leans back slightly, relaxing his posture now that the immediate threat has passed. You handled that well. Emily gives a half laugh that sounds far too shaky. I didn't feel like I handled anything. You sort of did everything. No, he argues softly. You stood up. You said no, that matters. She can't answer that. Her throat tightens with emotions she doesn't want to unravel in public. Instead, she folds the towel neatly and sets it aside, trying to gather herself. A server approaches with their waters, placing them carefully on the table before slipping away. Luca wraps his hand around his glass but doesn't drink. I meant what I said, he murmurs. You don't leave with him. Emily exhales, a long, slow breath that empties the tightness in her chest. Thank you. I didn't know how to get out of there. He relied on that, Luca says simply. Men like him pick people who shrink, people who won't push back. It's how they keep control. The accuracy makes her pulse stutter. You don't even know him. I know the type, Luca replies, his tone still soft, but unmistakably certain. Emily hesitates, studying him. And what type are you? For the first time, something shifts in his expression. Amusement, but faint. Subtle. The type that doesn't tolerate disrespect, he says, especially when it's directed at someone who didn't deserve it. Her cheeks warm. She looks down at her hands again, embarrassed by how much his attention affects her. It shouldn't. She just met him. And yet, she feels her body slowly unclenching, like every muscle has been braced for years. Luca checks his phone briefly, not rudely, not distracted, just checking, and then sets it face down on the table. A protective gesture, a prioritizing gesture. You said you drove here with him, he begins. Does he know where you live? The question makes her stomach twist. Yes. Luca's jaw flexes. Then someone will take you home, not him. She frowns slightly. Someone? My driver, he clarifies. Or I can take you myself, if you're comfortable with that. But you're not getting back into a car with a man who belittles you in public. She swallows. There's no force in his words, but there is certainty. A steady, protective certainty she didn't know how much she needed until now. I don't want to be a problem, she whispers. Luca's brow furrows, almost imperceptibly. You're not a problem. The way he says it, it's too sincere, too grounded, as if the idea itself frustrates him, as if he can see every bruise insecurity has left on her spirit. Emily looks down at her water glass again. I'm still shaking a little. That's normal, he says quietly. Adrenaline hits hardest once you're safe. She absorbs that word. Safe. It settles into her chest with an unfamiliar warmth. Do you want to step outside for some air? He offers. She hesitates, scanning the restaurant. Ryan is gone. His friend is gone. The doorway feels less like a trap now, more like a path she can choose on her own. She nods. Luca stands slowly, not rushing her. When she slides out of the booth, he steps aside, but keeps close enough that she feels the protective halo of his presence. They walk toward the patio exit, and with each step, her lungs expand a little more. The evening air is cooler now, the sky deepening into navy with streaks of gold from the streetlights. The patio is mostly empty, just two couples seated far on the other side, wrapped in their own worlds. Luca leads her toward a quiet corner near a heat lamp. She crosses her arms, rubbing warmth back into her elbows. Thank you, she says again, softer this time. You didn't have to come over. I did, he says. You looked like you were trying to disappear. Her breath catches. She had been trying. She always tries when Ryan starts performing. I didn't want to make a scene, she murmurs. He was counting on that, Luca replies. He knew you'd fold under pressure. That's why he brought the other man. Emily winces in embarrassment, remembering the cruel smirk, the condescending tone, the assessment that cut deeper than he realized. I wish I handled things better. You handled them fine, Luca counters gently. You got up. You walked away. That's more strength than you're giving yourself credit for. She swallows hard. Why do you care? He tilts his head, studying her with that unreadable, careful intensity. Because you deserve to be treated better than that, he says simply. Anyone could see it. Heat rises along her neck, not from shame, but from something warmer, something she's afraid to name. She looks away, unsure how to respond. Luca shifts closer, not touching, not crowding, just enough to shield her from the cool breeze. Tell me something, he murmurs. Would he have treated you that way, if he thought anyone in the room could stop him? Emily doesn't have to think long. No, she whispers. He never acts like that around people he respects. Exactly. Luca's voice deepens, quiet but edged. Cowards perform when they think their audience is powerless. She closes her eyes for a moment, letting the truth settle. When she opens them, Luca is watching her gently, arms crossed. Posture relaxed but alert, like someone who is always aware of danger but refuses to let it touch the person beside him. She steps a little closer to him without meaning to, as if her body recognizes safety before her mind does. Luca notices the movement. His voice softens. You don't have to go back there, he says. You stay out here as long as you want. Her chest tightens, not with fear, but with the strange, fragile feeling of being protected without being owned. For a long moment, they stand there in silence, the evening breeze brushing over them, the glow from the heat lamp tinting the air with amber. Emily's voice finally breaks the quiet. You really don't know me. Luca meets her gaze steadily. Not yet. The words ripple through her like a warm current, startling in their simplicity. Not pushy, not possessive, not a claim. An invitation, a possibility she didn't know she wanted until now. Emily's pulse steadies slowly as she stands beside him, the cool air brushing her skin while the heat lamp warms her back. Luca's presence is a strange comfort, solid, grounded, quietly intense, not demanding, not expecting, just there. And somehow, that changes everything. She takes a small breath, then another, the kind that feels like reclaiming space inside herself. For the first time all evening, her lungs don't feel tight. Luca shifts slightly, angling his body so he's giving her space, but still keeping himself between her and the patio entrance. It's subtle, instinctive, like he's already mapping the safest perimeter around her without making it obvious. She notices, and the part of her that's been stepped on for years feels something unfurl, cautious, fragile, but real. He studies her for a moment, his expression unreadable but softer now, the kind of softness that feels earned rather than offered freely. "Do you always let him speak to you like that?" he asks quietly. Emily's throat tightens. "I don't let him," she whispers. "I just didn't know how to stop it." Luca nods once, not judging, not lecturing, just understanding. It takes time to unlearn that kind of damage. She swallows, her eyes burning a little with the weight of those words. "Has someone ever made you feel small?" she asks, before she can stop herself. He lets out a slow, measured breath. "Yes." The answer is quiet. She can't imagine it. Someone making him shrink. But the honesty in his voice tells her it's real. "What did you do?" she asks. His eyes lift to hers, steady and dark. "I rebuilt myself, piece by piece, and I made sure no one ever got the chance to break me the same way again." Emily looks down, absorbing that. Rebuild, piece by piece. The idea feels like a foreign language, one she never learned because survival always came first. Luca studies her face, the furrow in her brow, the slight downturn of her mouth. "You're thinking too hard," he says quietly. She hesitates, rubbing the back of her arm. "I'm not used to someone noticing." "I noticed the moment I walked in," he says. Her heart skips, her eyes lift cautiously. "Noticed what?" He steps closer, not enough to crowd her, just enough to lower his voice. "That you were uncomfortable, that he wasn't giving you space to breathe, that he liked having an audience when he spoke to you." Emily's breath catches. "How could you tell?" Luca's gaze flickers downward, taking her in with slow, careful attention, never lingering where it shouldn't, never drifting into disrespect. "Your shoulders were tight. Your hands were curled like you were bracing for something, and you kept looking for exits without even realizing you were doing it." She freezes. The accuracy hits deep. "You noticed all that?" "I notice everything," he replies simply. She doesn't know how to respond to that, how to acknowledge the feeling of being seen without feeling exposed. She tucks a loose strand of hair behind her ear, trying to regroup. Luca watches her with quiet patience. "You're safe now," he murmurs. The words land low in her chest, anchoring her. She nods once, swallowing hard. "Thank you." "You don't need to thank me," he says. "He shouldn't have spoken to you like that, and he definitely shouldn't have brought another man to tear you down." Emily flinches at the memory. "That's what he does," she admits softly. "He makes my insecurities sound like facts." Luca's jaw sets in a slow, dangerous movement. "Then he's threatened by you." She laughs lightly, shaking her head. "Threatened by what? I'm not exactly intimidating." "Not because of intimidation," Luca says. "Because you see through him. Cowards hate being seen." Her breath stutters, not from fear, but from the quiet truth in his voice. Before she can respond, the patio door opens, and a server steps outside, holding a small tray with 2 steaming cups. "Compliments of the house," the server says nervously. "The manager said you should enjoy your evening away from all that." Emily's cheeks warm, but she nods gratefully. Luca thanks the server with a polite nod, then hands her one of the cups. It smells faintly of chamomile and honey. "You didn't have to," she begins. "I didn't," Luca interrupts. "They did. People step up when they witness mistreatment." Her chest tightens with a strange mixture of relief and embarrassment. I didn't want people to see. Good people should see, he replies. Otherwise, men like him keep winning. Emily sips her tea, letting the warmth soothe the tension in her throat. The breeze picks up slightly, rustling the outdoor curtains. Luca moves closer, blocking most of the wind just by standing near her. She feels strangely protected, the way one might feel standing behind a fortified wall. He tilts his head, studying her like he's reading her emotional pulse. "Tell me something," he says quietly. "Why did you agree to dinner with him?" Emily's shoulders sag. Because part of me thought, maybe he wanted closure. Or maybe I owed him a conversation. Or maybe I just didn't want to seem petty or bitter. Luca nods slowly. "You're too used to shrinking yourself." She bites her lip, surprised by how much the truth hurts. "I know. You don't have to anymore." The simplicity of the statement sends a shiver through her. Not a romantic shiver. Something deeper. Something like permission. Something like release. Emily wraps her hands around the warm cup, staring into the rising steam. "I feel stupid for letting him talk to me like that." "You're not stupid," Luca says. "You were conditioned." "That's not weakness. It's survival." Her throat closes with emotion. She wants to hide it, but Luca gently shakes his head. "Don't," he says. "Don't apologize for the damage someone else caused." She exhales shakily. "I'm trying." "I know." His voice softens. "And you're doing better than you think." She looks at him, really looks at him, and sees not just the tailored suit, not just the confidence, not just the intensity. She sees someone who understands broken pieces, someone who rebuilt himself enough to notice the cracks in other people. "Why are you being so kind to me?" she whispers. His answer is immediate. "Because you deserve it." Her chest tightens, warmth spreading through her ribs, soft and bewildering. The patio grows quieter. The air shifts. Something inside her lifts its head. Something like hope. Small and trembling but alive. Luca steps a little closer, lowering his voice. "And because you handled yourself tonight with more courage than you realize." Emily blinks up at him, her heartbeat fluttering in a way that feels unfamiliar, half fear, half possibility. And for the first time in years, she lets herself imagine a world outside Ryan's voice, and a future where her own voice might matter. Emily stands quietly for a moment, letting the warmth of the tea calm her from the inside out. The patio lights glow softly overhead, casting patterned shadows along the stone walkway, and she feels the evening settling into something gentler, something almost suspended in time. Luca watches her without pressing, giving her the silence she needs to gather herself. He drinks from his own cup, the steam softening the hard lines of his jaw for a brief moment. Then he sets the cup aside, leaning one shoulder lightly against the railing beside her. His posture is relaxed, but she can tell he's still alert, still attuned to every sound, every shift, every doorway. "Emily," he says quietly, breaking the silence. "You said earlier that you didn't know how to stop him from speaking to you the way he does. Has anyone ever told you to stop him?" She shakes her head slowly. "No. People usually say he's just confident or straightforward. Or they joke that he has big personality energy, like it's something I should just get used to." Luca watches her carefully. "Confidence doesn't require cruelty." She exhales softly. "You say it like it's obvious." "It is," he replies. "It's just not obvious to the people who benefit from pretending otherwise." Emily lets that sink in. She knows he's right. Ryan always hid behind charm and jokes, disguising his sharp words as playful teasing. People laughed when he insulted her, thinking it was part of their dynamic. They didn't see the aftermath, the quiet nights she spent convincing herself she wasn't overreacting, that she wasn't too sensitive, that maybe she deserved it a little. Luca steps a little closer, his voice dropping. Someone taught you that your discomfort isn't valid. That's the first lesson you have to unlearn. Her breath wavers at the truth in his words. I'm trying, she whispers. Good. He nods once. It's a start. She glances up at him, brow lightly furrowed. Why are you so sure I can change something that feels so ingrained? Because I've seen people rebuild themselves from far worse, he says simply. And because you already took the hardest step, you walked away. The word walked rings in her chest like a small victory she didn't know she earned. She wraps her arms around herself, but Luca subtly shifts closer, positioning himself so the wind doesn't hit her directly. She notices it, and she feels sheltered. Not caged. Sheltered. Do you want to tell me what happened between you and him? Luca asks after a moment. Not pushing, not prying, just offering. Emily hesitates, staring at the amber glow from the overhead lamp. Not everything, she says softly. Just, he made me feel small, all the time, even in private. Luca's expression darkens, but his eyes stay warm when he looks at her. And you accepted that? She nods with a quiet shame. For a while, I thought that was normal. Or maybe that I didn't deserve better. You do, he says immediately, firmly. I didn't realize, she murmurs. I didn't see it clearly until after we separated. That's how manipulation works, Luca says, the edge returning subtly to his tone. It keeps you blinded just enough to stop you from walking away. She takes a breath. But I did walk away. Exactly, he says. You broke the cycle. Emily looks down, her heartbeat fluttering. Tonight made me feel like maybe I didn't. I let him talk me into coming. I didn't think I could say no. Luca shakes his head. You didn't go because he had power over you. You went because you're considerate. Because you wanted closure. Because you wanted to avoid conflict. And that's bad? She asks. No, he says. That's human. But he used that kindness against you. A small knot unwinds in her chest, the part that blamed herself for everything. She tucks a strand of hair behind her ear. Did you read all of that in a few minutes? Luca gives a faint, dry smirk. A few minutes is enough to understand a man like him. Emily leans back against the railing, her body slowly, finally relaxing. They stay like that for a moment, watching the soft glow of headlights from the street, listening to the distant hum of traffic fading into the night air. Can I ask you something? She murmurs. Luca nods once. Do you always step in when you see someone being treated badly? If I can, he says. I don't like bullies. She studies him. You don't seem like someone who deals with many bullies. Anyone can be cornered, he answers quietly. Even me. The admission surprises her. He looks like the type who dominates every room he walks into. The type who commands attention without saying a word. The type no one dares to cross. But the sincerity in his voice tells her he isn't bragging. He isn't posturing. He's remembering. How did you get out? She asks softly. Luca's eyes meet hers, dark and steady. By choosing people who respected me, and walking away from everyone who didn't. The simplicity of the answer makes her chest ache. I want that, she whispers before she can stop herself. Luca steps forward, not too close, but close enough that she feels his attention sharpen. You can have it, he murmurs, starting tonight. Emily's breath catches. Somewhere inside her, a door she once thought was sealed shut creaks open. She lets out a soft, trembling exhale. I feel stupid, she admits quietly, needing someone to step in for me. You didn't need me, Luca says. You were already standing when I saw you. You just needed someone to remind you that you were allowed to. A small, unexpected warmth unfurls inside her ribs, fragile but growing. Something like strength, something like hope. Before she can respond, the patio door opens, and the restaurant manager steps out again, offering a tentative smile. "Sorry to interrupt," he says, "but the gentlemen who were causing trouble earlier, they've left the property. You should be able to enjoy your evening now." Emily nods gratefully. Luca thanks him with a polite nod. When the manager leaves, Luca looks back at her. "Do you want to go back inside?" She hesitates. Inside, there's warmth, soft lighting, and quiet tables. Out here, there's privacy. Safety. Him. "Maybe we could stay here a little longer," she says softly. Luca's lips curve. Not quite a smile, but something warm and approving. "As long as you want." He moves closer, resting his forearms on the railing beside her, his voice low. "Tell me something real about you," he says. The question is gentle, but it knocks the breath from her lungs. She looks up at him, the amber light catching in her eyes. "Something real. Something that's yours," he says. "Not something he told you about yourself." Her heart stirs. Slowly, she begins to speak. And Luca listens, truly listens, like every word she offers has weight. For the first time in a long time, Emily feels like she matters. Emily takes a small breath, letting the quiet between them settle before she speaks. The words don't come easily, not because she doesn't have anything real to say, but because she hasn't been asked to share something real in a long time. With Ryan, every personal detail she revealed became ammunition later. Every vulnerability turned into a punchline. But Luca waits with that patient stillness, his eyes steady, his posture relaxed, but attentive. He isn't demanding. He isn't pushing. He's simply present, an anchor she didn't know she'd been searching for. "I like painting," she finally says, her voice soft but steady. "I used to do it a lot. Before everything." "Before him," Luca says gently. She nods. "I stopped because he said it was a childish hobby, that it wouldn't take me anywhere, that I should focus on something useful." The word tastes bitter coming out of her mouth. Luca's expression tightens, just slightly, his jaw shifting, his eyes cooling. "Did you believe him?" "A little," she admits. "He said it enough times that I figured maybe he was right." "He wasn't," Luca says. The firmness in his voice doesn't startle her. It grounds her. "Any man who mocks what brings you peace has nothing worth offering." Emily exhales shakily. She looks down at her hands, turning her cup slightly between her palms. "I miss it. The painting. The way it made me feel. But every time I picked up a brush after we broke up, I'd hear his voice telling me it was a waste of time." Luca steps closer, his voice dropping lower. "Then paint something small tomorrow. Something simple. Something he never got to control." He pauses. "Take back what he stole from you." Her throat tightens, and she swallows hard. "You make it sound easy. It won't be." His eyes soften. "But you're stronger than you think." The words settle warm in her chest, surprising her with how much she believes them coming from him. She looks up at him. "Okay, one real thing about me." She tucks a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Your turn." His brows lift slightly. "My turn?" "If I share something real," she says quietly, "you share something real." He studies her for a moment, then nods. "Fair." He rests his hands lightly on the railing. "I like old music." She smiles unexpectedly. "Really?" He nods once. "Frank Sinatra. Nat King Cole. The kind of music people slow dance to." The image of him slow dancing with someone sends a distracting warmth through her chest. She tries to hide it by looking back at the patio lights. "That's actually really sweet," she says. A faint hint of amusement flickers in his eyes. Sweet isn't a word people usually use to describe me. Well, she murmurs, maybe people only see the sharp edges. And you don't? He asks. Emily meets his gaze. I see someone who stepped in when he didn't have to. Luca's eyes soften, something shifting behind them, something she can't quite name but feels in her bones. Before she can say anything else, her phone buzzes in her purse. The sudden vibration startles her. Her stomach drops when she sees the screen light up with Ryan's name. She tenses, fingers tightening slightly around the phone. Luca notices instantly. Don't answer, he says quietly. She lets the buzz fade out in her hand, and when it stops, she exhales a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Luca tilts his head. Does he usually blow up your phone? Sometimes, she whispers, when he's embarrassed, or when he wants to control the narrative. Then let him sit with the silence, Luca replies. He doesn't get access to you tonight. Emily slowly slips the phone back into her purse. Her pulse steadies with the simple act. Another real thing, Luca says softly, bringing the conversation back with ease, like he knew she needed to feel normal again. Tell me what you wanted to be when you were younger. She lets out a small breath. A children's book illustrator. He smiles, an actual smile this time, subtle but genuine. That suits you. Why? She asks, almost shy. Because your eyes soften when you talk about creating things, and because you see the world in color. Even when someone taught you to live in grayscale, her heart stirs in her chest, warm and aching. Your turn, she says, her voice smaller now. Luca glances at the night sky for a moment, as if deciding how much to give. When he looks back at her, something vulnerable flickers in his expression. Barely there, but present enough that she feels it. I wanted to be someone my younger self wouldn't be afraid of. Emily's breath catches. Were you afraid of the people around you when you were young? His gaze drifts, distant for a moment. I was afraid of myself, afraid I'd become what I saw. She feels her chest tighten with empathy. And did you? No, he says quietly. I chose a different path. You seem strong now. He shakes his head faintly. Strength doesn't come from never being broken. It comes from rebuilding. Her pulse stutters, those words cutting straight into the softest parts of her heart. You rebuilt yourself, she whispers. He nods. And you will too. They fall into silence again, but not uncomfortable silence, the kind that feels like connection, warm and tentative. The patio lights flicker softly. A breeze drifts past, carrying the scent of jasmine from the small garden beside them. Emily feels something inside her shift, something that's been locked away, something she hasn't let herself feel in a long time. She turns slightly toward him. Luca, can I ask one more question? Anything, he murmurs. Why did you come over to the table at all? You didn't know me. You didn't know the situation. He holds her gaze, steady and unwavering. I didn't need to know the details. I saw a woman trying to make herself invisible in the presence of someone who didn't deserve her, and I don't tolerate men who prey on vulnerability. His voice grows softer. I won't let someone be torn down in front of me when I can stop it. A soft breath escapes her lips. She feels something warm spread through her chest. Slow, gentle, powerful. Then why are you still standing here with me? She asks. Luca steps closer, not touching her, but close enough that she can feel the heat of him. Because, he says quietly, you haven't looked invisible since the moment you walked away from him. Her breath catches. He watches her like she's something fragile and fierce at the same time. And for the first time in years, she feels seen without being judged, wanted without being belittled. protected without being caged. Something begins to bloom inside her, slow and unsteady, trembling but real. Hope. Emily stands there, holding his words somewhere deep in her chest, feeling them settle into places she thought were too damaged to absorb anything warm. The night air pushes softly against her, cool and steady, but Luca's presence radiates a quiet heat that feels strangely grounding. She isn't used to being near someone who doesn't swallow up space, but reshapes it so she can breathe freely. He shifts slightly, just enough that their shoulders almost align, the space between them narrowing in a way that feels intentional but gentle. He's close enough that she can see the faint scar along his jaw, the subtle stubble, the steadiness in his eyes. He's close enough that she feels a subtle current pass between them. Like the room has been rewired. "You all right?" Luca asks, voice low, warm, threaded with a concern that feels so natural coming from him, it makes her chest tighten. "I think so," she says softly. "I'm just surprised." "By what?" "By how easy it feels to talk to you." He exhales a faint laugh through his nose, not mocking but quiet, almost relieved. "Good. I wasn't sure if I was overwhelming you." "You're not." She brushes a lock of hair behind her ear before adding, "You're the calmest part of tonight." His eyes soften, slowing the moment even more. "I'm glad." They stand together in the hush of the patio, lights glowing gold, the world outside reduced to muffled traffic and distant laughter. Emily leans her elbows onto the railing, breathing in the night air. Her head finally feels clear. But then her nerves spike again, as if her mind finally catches up with everything at once. "Luca," she murmurs. He straightens slightly. "Yes? Can I ask you something more personal?" He gives a small nod. "You can ask me anything." She hesitates, unsure if she's crossing a line, but curiosity and something else, something warm, push her forward. "When you walked in, why did you look at me like that, before you even came over?" He studies her, and for a moment, she thinks he won't answer. But then he does. Quiet, honest, without hesitation. "Because you looked like someone who deserved kindness no one was giving." Her breath catches. "And," he adds, his voice dipping lower, "because you looked away too quickly when I noticed you. People who don't want attention don't do that." He pauses. "People who've been trained to avoid trouble do." A shiver runs through her, not fear. Recognition. "You read me," she whispers. "No," he says gently. "I saw you." Emily's chest tightens with emotion she doesn't know how to name. Luca notices. "Does that scare you?" She shakes her head slowly. "No. It feels strange, but not bad." "Good," he murmurs. A moment passes. Quiet. Charged. Then Luca clears his throat softly and shifts again, his tone dipping into something careful. "Can I be honest about something else? Please. When I saw him talking to you the way he did, something in me." He searches for the right words. "Reacted." "Reacted?" she echoes. He nods once, strongly. He pauses, watching her face. "It's not something I'm proud of. But I don't like watching people get belittled, especially someone who looked like she was trying so hard not to break." Emily feels her breath falter. "I didn't want to fall apart in there." "You didn't," he says firmly. "You held yourself together. You walked away before he could take anything else from you." His voice grows softer. "That takes strength most people never notice." She blinks rapidly, trying to keep her emotions from spilling over. She hates crying in front of people, especially men. But Luca's gaze isn't sharp or pitying. It's steady, gentle, unwavering. "You're making it very hard not to cry," she whispers, embarrassed. Then don't fight it, he says softly. You don't have to hide anything from me. The words unravel something inside her, something knotted, something tight. Something she's been gripping for far too long. Her eyes burn. She looks away, but Luca steps subtly closer, tilting his head, as if trying to read the emotions she's trying so hard to contain. Emily wipes at her eyes quickly. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing, he murmurs. You're allowed to feel. The breeze moves around them, lifting strands of her hair. Luca reaches forward slowly, not touching her, but close enough that she can feel the warmth of his hand hover near her cheek. May I? He asks quietly. Emily's breath quivers. She nods. He gently brushes a tear from her skin with the back of his knuckles. The touch is feather light, respectful, and impossibly tender. A warmth blooms behind her ribs, unexpected, full, almost painful in its softness. Thank you, she whispers. You don't thank someone for treating you gently, Luca replies, letting his hand fall back to his side. Her heart is loud in her chest. Too loud. She tries to steady herself, turning slightly so she can rest her hands against the railing. After a moment, she asks, voice barely above a breath, Luca, why are you being like this with me? We're strangers. He steps beside her, elbows resting on the railing, his posture mirroring hers. No, he says quietly. We met as strangers. We're not strangers now. She lets out a shaky breath. It feels fast. What does? He asks softly. Trust. Safety. This. She gestures between them, uncertain. He considers her words, his voice calm when he responds. When you've spent years around the wrong people, you learn to recognize the right ones quickly. Her eyes flick to his. He holds her gaze. And I don't take it lightly that you're opening up to me. The vulnerability in his honesty makes her feel something sharp and warm twist inside her chest. Emily, he says gently, you're safe with me. You don't have to question every breath. She inhales deeply, and for the first time tonight, it feels natural. He shifts slightly, changing the topic with care. Tell me what else you love. She looks at him, surprised. Why do you want to know? Because, he says, you're a whole person, and no one's asked you about that in a long time. Her throat tightens again, but this time it's from something soft, not painful. She tucks her fingers under her elbow, thinking, I love the sound of rain at night. He nods. Good. What else? She breathes out, quieter now. I love sketching, and I love warm nights like this, and bookstores that smell like paper and dust. He listens with that same stillness, like each detail is worth remembering. Then he answers softly, those things suit you. She smiles, a small, shy smile she hasn't felt in years. Why? Because they're gentle, he says, and so are you. Emily looks down, overwhelmed in a way that feels sweet instead of crushing. Luca, noticing her silence, adds quietly, gentle isn't weak, Emily. Gentle means you haven't let the world turn you cold. Her eyes sting again, but this time she doesn't fight it. The moment stretches, quiet, warm, fragile. Then Luca lifts his head slightly. Can I ask you something now? She nods. When was the last time someone listened to you the way you deserve to be heard? Emily hesitates, her voice trembling softly when she answers. Tonight, she whispers. The way Luca looks at her then, like she's something rare, something precious, something worth protecting, makes her breath catch. For the first time in her adult life, Emily feels something steady and warm take root inside her chest. She feels seen, safe, wanted. And for a moment, standing there in the soft glow of the patio lights, with the night air cool and Luca standing close enough to warm her. She wonders if tonight isn't just the end of something painful, but the beginning of something good. Emily stays quiet for a long moment, letting the softness of what she just admitted settle inside her chest. It feels strange, saying it out loud. Stranger still that it feels true. The cool night air brushes her skin, carrying the faint scent of blooming jasmine, and Luca stands beside her like an unwavering pillar, steady and calm. She senses that he's giving her space to breathe, to think, to feel. He doesn't lean in, he doesn't hover, he doesn't pressure. He simply exists beside her in a way that makes her feel anchored instead of confined. When she finally speaks again, her voice is soft. I didn't expect any of this tonight. Luca's eyes shift toward her, steady and warm. Neither did I. She looks up at him, studying the lines of his face under the amber patio lights. Why did you come here tonight? I mean, to this restaurant. He lets out a slow breath, not evasive, not tense, just thoughtful. Business meeting. With the 2 men at your table? He nods once. Employees, trusted ones. Emily hesitates. Are you important? A small flicker of amusement passes through his eyes. Depends on who you ask. She frowns lightly. I'm asking you. Luca studies her, something shifting behind his gaze. I'm in a line of work where people expect certainty from me, decisions, control. She tilts her head. That sounds lonely. He doesn't answer right away, and the silence is telling. Finally, he says, It can be. Emily's heart tightens. Then why did you leave your meeting? He meets her eyes. Because the moment I saw you with him, the meeting didn't matter. Her breath catches. Why? Luca steps slightly closer, not touching her, but close enough that she can feel the warmth radiating from him. Because no decent human being leaves someone to drown alone. Drown. The word lands heavily, accurately. Emily turns her face toward the garden, needing a moment to steady herself. I didn't even realize how bad it had gotten until I saw you looking at me like it wasn't normal. That's because it wasn't. His voice softens. And it never should have been. Her fingers curl gently around the railing. I keep thinking, if I'd been stronger, maybe he wouldn't have treated me like that. Luca shakes his head, slow and firm. He treated you that way because you were strong. Strong enough to make him feel small. Men like him hate that. Her eyes widen slightly. You think I made him feel small? Absolutely, Luca murmurs. You were quiet, not clingy. You didn't worship him. You saw him clearly, and he resented you for it. She'd never thought of it that way. Never considered that maybe her calmness, her softness, her refusal to participate in his ego games made him insecure. Her voice is barely above a whisper. He told me once that loving me felt like loving a ghost. The softness in Luca's expression vanishes, replaced by a sharp, controlled fury. He said that to you? Emily nods. He said I was distant, hard to impress, hard to keep. Luca takes a slow breath, trying to settle his reaction. You know what I see. What? A woman who doesn't perform for attention, who doesn't need noise to feel real. That kind of depth scares shallow men. She swallows hard, emotion pricking behind her eyes again. How can he read her so easily, yet without judgment? Without twisting her softness into a flaw? Luca shifts slightly, his voice low. Tell me something else real. She wipes under her eyes discreetly. I'm scared. He nods, not surprised. Of him? A little. And of me? He asks gently. She hesitates. Not scared of you. Just Scared of how safe you feel. His breath catches quietly, an almost imperceptible pause. Safety shouldn't scare you. It does when I'm not used to it, she whispers. Luca's eyes soften further, the tension in his shoulders easing. Then we take it slow. No pressure. No expectations. Emily nods, grateful for the space in his words. And, he adds, voice quieter now, I will never be the one you have to shrink around. Her throat tightens. You don't strike me as someone who likes small things. I don't, he admits. But you're not small. The certainty in his voice sends warmth through her entire body. He watches her closely, studying the shift in her expression, the quiet flutter of her breath. Do you want to stay out here longer? Or leave? You choose. Her heart jumps at that one word. Choose. Ryan never gave her choices. Everything with him was framed as, do what I want or deal with the consequences. But Luca is different. Every sentence he speaks gives her space instead of taking it. Emily takes a slow breath. Can we not leave yet? Of course. He nods gently. As long as you want. A comfortable silence settles between them. She finds herself relaxing again, her shoulders releasing their habitual tension. After a moment, Luca glances toward the restaurant windows, then back at her. You know, you never finish telling me what else you love. She smiles a little, her voice catching the faintest warmth. I love quiet mornings, coffee before the world wakes up, and I love the ocean. The ocean? She nods. I don't know. It feels big enough that my problems don't feel so overwhelming when I'm near it. Luca's eyes soften. You deserve to feel that kind of calm. She exhales. Your turn. Tell me something real again. Luca looks at the sky thoughtfully. All right. His gaze returns to hers. I haven't taken a day off in 8 months. She blinks. 8 months? People rely on me, he says. And when people rely on you, you don't allow yourself to rest. She tilts her head. Is that lonely too? Sometimes. Another silence follows, gentle, unhurried. Then Emily says quietly, You can rest with me right now. His eyes widen slightly, not dramatically, but enough that she sees the impact of her words hit him. He nods once. I am. A soft warmth rushes through her, unexpected, but welcome. Emily, he murmurs after a moment, his voice slow, almost careful. I want to make sure you understand something. She looks up at him, heart fluttering. What is it? You're not a burden, not to me, not to anyone worth your time. Her breath catches again. How many times tonight has he pulled her back from the edge with just a few words? Before she can respond, the patio door cracks open slightly. One of Luca's men steps halfway out, searching. When he spots Luca, he nods once as if confirming something silently before heading back inside. Emily's brows lift. Is everything okay? Yes, Luca says. They're just making sure you're not disturbed again. He's protecting her, actively, intentionally. Somehow, that makes her feel braver than she's ever felt before. Luca, she whispers, can I tell you something else real? Anything, he says. I feel safe with you. The breath he releases is so subtle, she wonders if he meant to reveal that much. His eyes soften, dark and warm and steady. You are safe with me, he says. Her heart stutters, and for the first time in a very long time, Emily lets herself believe it. Emily stays very still after saying it. I feel safe with you, as if the words are fragile and might crack if she even breathes too hard. But the moment doesn't shatter. It deepens. The air between them shifts into something warmer. Something steady and emotionally charged in a way she isn't used to, in a way that makes her pulse flutter, but not with fear. Luca doesn't move for a second either. He just watches her, absorbing every subtle detail of her expression, not dissecting her, understanding her. When he finally speaks, his voice is low enough that it brushes against her skin like a warm tide. "Good," he whispers. "You should." Emily looks down, suddenly shy. She's never been shy. Not like this. Not in a way that feels soft instead of insecure. She exhales shakily and rests her forearms on the railing, letting the cool metal hold some of the heat rising in her chest. The faint sounds of the city hum around them, the distant roll of traffic, soft laughter drifting from inside the restaurant, the rustling of leaves in the breeze. For once, all of it feels far away. Luca stands close enough that she feels his presence like a steady pulse beside her, not crowding, not demanding, just there. And she finds herself wanting him to stay right where he is. After a moment, he asks softly, "What else are you thinking?" Emily lets out a small, nervous breath. "I'm thinking that this feels unreal." "In what way?" "In the way that I didn't think someone could make me feel this calm, this quickly." He tilts his head. "Does it worry you?" "A little," she admits, "but not because it feels wrong." She pauses, her voice trembling. "Because it feels right." Luca's gaze warms, darkens, deepens. Sometimes the right things don't need time to declare themselves. She meets his eyes, and for a moment, they just look at each other. Quiet, close, connected. Emily breaks the gaze first, flustered. "You talk like someone who's seen a lot." "I have," he murmurs, "but I haven't seen you before tonight." Her breath catches. "Luca." He leans slightly closer, not touching her, but drawing her attention like gravity. "I won't rush anything," he says quietly. "You set the pace. You choose each step." Emily nods slowly, her heart knocking gently against her ribs. "Thank you." "I meant it," he adds. Every word. She studies his profile. Strong, composed, careful. There's something in his expression, in his posture, that speaks of discipline and restraint. A man who's carried burdens for too long. A man used to protecting others more than himself. Something inside her softens. "What about you?" she asks. "Who takes care of you?" He blinks, caught off guard in a way she hasn't seen before. "That's not something I think about." "Maybe you should." He exhales slowly. "Maybe." Another silence drifts between them, but it's warm, not awkward. Emily leans against the railing again, watching the lights flicker softly across the restaurant windows. "Tonight didn't go how I expected," she murmurs. "Tonight went exactly how it needed to," Luca says. She smiles faintly. "You're very sure of yourself." "Only when it matters." He pauses. "And you matter." Her heart squeezes painfully sweet at the gentle weight of those words. No one has said anything like that to her in years. Maybe ever. She tries to swallow past the tightness in her throat. "I don't know what to say to that." "You don't have to say anything." He steps just slightly closer. Close enough that the warmth from his arm brushes hers. "Just let yourself feel what you feel." She inhales slowly. "What if I'm out of practice?" "I'm patient," he murmurs. Emily looks up at him again, her pulse fluttering faster than the breeze tugging at her hair. He watches her like he's memorizing her. Every shift, every breath, every tiny flicker of emotion. "Luca," she whispers, unsure what she wants to say but needing to say something. He leans in the tiniest bit. "Yes." Her mind goes blank for a second, overwhelmed by the closeness, the safety, the attention that feels so steady and real. She finally manages. "Thank you for being here." His expression softens even further. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be." She looks away quickly, her cheeks warming. The moment is intense, too intense, maybe, but not in the wrong way, in the life-changing way, in the awakening way. He steps back just slightly, giving her space again. "Do you want to talk more?" he asks. "Or do you want quiet?" She takes a small breath. "Just talk. I like hearing you talk." His lips lift in a faint, barely there smile. "What do you want to know?" "Anything," she says. "Everything." He turns to face her more completely. "All right," he says, with quiet honesty. "I'll tell you something real." She nods, bracing gently. "My life isn't simple," he says. "And I don't live in a world filled with soft things. So when I see something gentle, something genuine," his voice lowers. "I don't take it lightly." Emily feels tears prick again, but they aren't painful this time. They're warm, hopeful. "You think I'm gentle? I know you are. And that's not a bad thing?" "Not to me." He pauses. "To me, that's rare." She looks down, speechless. Luca watches her quietly. "Emily." She lifts her head. "Yes?" "I need you to understand something." Her pulse stutters. "Okay." "The way he spoke to you tonight," Luca says, his voice shifting deeper, firmer, "says everything about him, and nothing about you." Her breath trembles. "It felt like everything was about me." "It wasn't." His gaze sharpens, not unkindly, but protectively. "You were never the problem. He was." Emily presses her lips together, her eyes glassy. "I've never heard anyone say that." "You're hearing it now." She nods slowly, letting the truth in, layer by layer. Luca softens his voice again. "You don't have to carry his words anymore." Emily wipes under her eye, her voice barely audible. "I don't want to." "Good," he murmurs. "Then leave them here, tonight." The night air presses gently against her skin. For the first time in a long time, she feels something inside her unclench, something old, something heavy. She exhales, long and slow. "Okay." Luca's shoulders ease slightly, like he'd been holding a breath for her too. He studies her with a quiet intensity. "Do you feel lighter?" She thinks about it, surprised at how quickly the answer comes. "Yes." He nods. "Good." Emily leans her arms on the railing again, and Luca mirrors her posture, their shoulders almost but not quite touching. "You know," she whispers after a moment, "I didn't think I'd feel anything tonight except humiliation." "You deserve better than that emotion," he says. Her voice softens. "And what do I deserve instead?" "Respect," he answers instantly. "Warmth, safety, joy." Her chest tightens. "That sounds nice." "It's the bare minimum," he says gently. She looks at him, really looks at him. "You talk like someone who's lost things." He doesn't look away. "Maybe I have, and found things," she adds softly. He holds her gaze. "Maybe I'm finding something right now." Her breath hitches, too loud, too fast, too real. She swallows. "Luca." "Yes, Emily?" She hesitates, not because she's unsure, but because she's suddenly sure of too much. "Do you want to sit with me?" she asks quietly. "Somewhere that isn't just standing?" His eyes soften like warm shadows. "I'd like that very much." He gestures toward a small bench tucked beneath the patio lights, half hidden by a cluster of potted plants. It's private, quiet, close. Emily's heart flutters. "Okay." They walk toward it together, slowly, side by side. And for the first time in years, Emily feels like she's walking toward something good, something hopeful, something new. Emily sits first, carefully smoothing her dress beneath her as she settles onto the small wooden bench. It's warm from the patio lights above, and the faint scent of jasmine from the garden wraps around her like a soft veil. Luca follows, lowering himself beside her, with a quiet ease that makes the bench dip ever so slightly. Not enough to crowd her, just enough that she feels the faint gravity of his presence. They sit close, but not touching. Close enough that she feels the heat radiating from him. Close enough that her breath catches at the awareness of him beside her. But Luca stays composed, giving her space even here, even now. He leans back slightly, arm resting along the top of the bench, but angled away so she doesn't feel boxed in. It's a subtle gesture, protective in its restraint. Emily exhales slowly, letting the moment settle. A faint breeze drifts through the patio, brushing their faces, carrying the earthy smell of the potted herbs nearby. The world feels muted, softened, wrapped in warm light and quiet intention. This is nicer than I expected a night like this could be, she murmurs, her voice small but sincere. Luca's eyes shift to her, studying her profile in that way he does, steady, patient, unhurried. You deserve nights like this. She tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, looking down at her hands. I don't know if I know how to accept them. Then you learn, Luca says softly. One moment at a time. She lets out a quiet, shaky breath. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, he replies gently. But it's possible. Emily turned slightly toward him, catching the shadows beneath his eyes, the softness in the tension of his jaw. He looks strong, immutable. But there's a quiet vulnerability in him too, something he doesn't hide from her. You keep saying things I didn't know I needed to hear, she whispers. That's because no one said them before, he murmurs. And that's the tragedy. She swallows hard, emotion tightening her throat. Why do you care so much? About me? He looks at her for a long, quiet moment. Something unguarded shifts behind his gaze, something tender, something honest. Because the moment I saw you in that room, Luca says, voice low and sure, I recognized someone who's been strong for too long. Emily's breath stutters. Strong? Yes. He leans slightly closer, not enough to overwhelm, just enough to show he means every word. You stood there taking verbal blows from someone who should have lifted you up. You kept your composure. You didn't lash out. You didn't crumble. That isn't weakness, Emily. That's endurance. Her eyes sting. She looks down, blinking quickly. I didn't feel strong. You didn't have to, he says softly. You just had to survive him. And you did. A tear slips down her cheek before she can stop it. She wipes it away quickly, but Luca notices. Of course he notices. He reaches out again, slowly, giving her every chance to pull back. When she doesn't, he brushes the tear away with the gentlest touch. Emily's breath trembles. Why are you so gentle with me? Because you deserve gentleness, he says simply. And because I won't be another person who takes from you. Her heart floods with something warm, too much. She looks down, overwhelmed. I don't know what to do with all of this. You don't have to do anything, Luca says quietly. Just sit with me. She nods slowly, her chest loosening as she leans back into the bench. Luca shifts slightly too, a subtle adjustment that brings their shoulders a little closer, still not touching, but aligned. The closeness feels intentional, careful, almost intimate. After a moment, Emily speaks again, her voice fragile. I thought tonight would be awful. I thought I'd leave feeling small. You're not small, Luca murmurs. You know that, right? She hesitates. He waits, patient. Still. I don't know, she admits. I want to believe it. Then let me help you, he says. Not by telling you who to be, but by showing you how someone should look at you. Emily's breath catches. How should someone look at me? Luca turns his head toward her, slowly, deliberately. His eyes meet hers, and the warmth there is almost enough to knock the air from her lungs. "Like this," he says gently. Her heart stops, because the way he's looking at her, soft, steady, open, is something she's never experienced. Admiration without expectation, interest without pressure, warmth without manipulation. Her voice trembles. "No one's ever looked at me like that." His jaw tightens slightly, an almost imperceptible flicker of anger at the thought. "Then they didn't deserve you?" She swallows hard. "I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he murmurs. "Just be here." They sit in silence again, this time charged, warm, full of possibility. The night deepens around them, the patio lights glowing like small stars, the world outside falling away. After a moment, Luca's voice drops, almost a whisper. "Emily, can I ask you something?" She nods, pulse quickening. "Yes. When you walked away from him tonight, did you know how strong that was?" She shakes her head. "It didn't feel strong. It felt desperate." "It wasn't desperate," he says. "It was brave." She looks at him, startled. "Brave?" "Yes." He leans in slightly, his gaze locked on hers. "Walking away from someone who has power over you, emotional, psychological, anything, that's one of the bravest things a person can do." She feels something inside her loosen, a knot she hadn't even realized she'd been carrying. "I just didn't want him to see me break." "And you didn't," Luca says. "But even if you had, it wouldn't have made you weak." Her eyes burn again. She lets out a shaky breath. "You make me feel like I'm not broken." "You're not broken," he says. "You're healing, and that's different." A quiet settles between them again, warm, fragile, intimate. Emily shifts slightly, turning more toward him. "Can I tell you something else?" "Anything." I haven't felt safe to feel anything around someone in a long time. Luca's expression softens even more. "Then I'm honored you feel safe now." She presses her lips together, her eyes glimmering. "I don't know why. I just do." "You don't need a reason," he murmurs. "Sometimes safety is instinct." She lets those words settle deep inside her. Luca leans back, just enough to ease the tension from the moment, giving her space to breathe again. "If you want," he says softly, "I can sit with you in silence. Or we can talk. Or we can leave. Whatever you need." Emily shakes her head gently. "I want to stay." He nods, accepting that without question. A quiet smile touches her lips. Small, fragile, but real. "I didn't think I'd say this tonight, but I'm glad you came over to that table." He gives her a slow smile, quiet, soft, almost shy in its sincerity. "So am I." She exhales, feeling something warm settle inside her chest. For the first time in what feels like years, Emily feels like the night isn't something to endure, but something to cherish. And beside her, Luca feels less like a stranger, and more like someone she was meant to find. Emily sits a little deeper into the bench, as if her body finally understands it's allowed to rest. Not just physically, but emotionally. She feels the weight of the night settling around her in the gentlest way, like a blanket rather than a burden. The patio lights glow overhead, casting a soft golden halo around Luca's profile, and she can't help but study him for a moment. The strong lines of his jaw, the quiet steadiness in the way he holds himself, the warmth in his eyes that he doesn't hide from her. It feels unreal. This closeness, this calm, this unexpected sense of safety wrapping around her like warm hands. But it doesn't feel wrong. It feels like the first right thing she's experienced in a long time. Luca notices her watching him, and instead of smirking or teasing the way Ryan would have, He simply tilts his head slightly and murmurs, "What are you thinking now?" She exhales softly, unsure how honest to be, but she promised herself she'd be real tonight. "I'm thinking," she says, voice gentle, "that maybe I'm not as alone as I thought." The subtle shift in his expression, something soft, something deep, makes her heartbeat flutter. "You were never alone," he says. "You just didn't have the right people beside you." Emily's throat tightens. "And you think you're one of the right people?" He meets her gaze without hesitation. "I'd like to be." He pauses. "But that's your choice. Always your choice." She's struck by how serious he is, how much weight he puts on her agency. She's not accustomed to it. But she likes it. She likes the way he gives her space without stepping away. She takes a shaky breath. It feels strange, having a choice. "You'll get used to it," he murmurs. She lets out a quiet breath, almost a laugh. "I hope so." Luca shifts slightly, angling his body toward her. "Emily, may I ask one more thing?" She nods. "Of course." "What do you want right now? Not what you think you should want. Not what he would have wanted you to want. What you want." She goes still. The question is so simple and so enormous. She looks down at her hands, her fingers trembling slightly as she tries to gather the truth she's been afraid to touch. "Right now." She swallows. "I want to feel like tonight isn't happening by accident." Luca's breath catches. A subtle inhale she feels more than hears. "It isn't." She looks up at him quickly, eyes wide. "It isn't?" "No." His voice warms. "I came to that table because I was meant to. I stayed because I wanted to. And I'm here because this," he gestures gently between them, "doesn't feel accidental to me." Her heart lurches. "Really?" "Really." His voice softens. "Things don't have to be slow to be real. They just have to be honest." Emily feels something inside her unlock, something small but powerful. She takes another breath. "Then I want, whatever this is, to keep going." A slow, warm smile spreads across Luca's face, the kind of smile that feels rare for him, the kind that makes her chest swell. Then it will. They fall into a quiet that feels like the world narrowing around the two of them, softening, folding warm. The breeze brushes her hair. The lights glow above them. And Luca sits beside her, like an anchor in a gentle storm she didn't realize she'd been weathering. After a moment, she speaks again. Her voice is small, shy. "Can I tell you something I've never told anyone?" He nods immediately. "Always." Emily hesitates, gathering courage. "When I was with him, I felt like I was disappearing a little more every year, like pieces of me were being scraped off until I was hollow." Luca's jaw flexes, his expression darkening, but not at her, at the pain he imagines, at the past she lived. "He took pieces that weren't his to take," he says, voice low. "And I let him," she whispers. "No," Luca says softly. "You survived him. That's something entirely different." She looks away, tears filling her eyes. "I'm tired of surviving." He turns toward her fully, his voice dropping into something gentle and sure. "Then stop surviving. Start living. Tonight can be the first step." Her breath trembles. "With you." He nods once, slow, sincere. "If you want." Emily feels something warm bloom inside her chest. She wipes a single tear from her cheek and gives a small, brave smile. "I think I do." Luca's expression softens into something she's never seen on him before, something tender. He lifts his hand carefully, pausing halfway to make sure she's okay with it. When she doesn't pull back, he lets his fingers curl gently around hers. The touch is warm, solid, real. Emily's breath catches. She looks down at their joined hands, then up at him. This feels Good, good, he murmurs. It should. Her fingers curl slightly into his, seeking more connection without even realizing it. Luca notices, and his thumb brushes softly across her knuckles, a silent promise. A quiet moment stretches, warm and full of something new, something hopeful. Luca turns his head a little, watching her with an expression that feels both protective and captivated. Do you want to leave this place? He asks gently. Get some air. Walk. Get coffee. Anything you want. Emily shakes her head softly. No. No. She leans a little closer, not touching, but letting her intent be clear. I want to stay right here, with you. Luca's breath stills for just a heartbeat. Then he nods, the softest smile touching his lips. As long as you want, Emily. She looks at him, eyes shimmering with something she isn't afraid of anymore. For the first time in a long time, I want something good. And you'll have it, Luca murmurs. I promise. Emily feels the words settle inside her, not as hope, but as certainty. For years, she thought her story was one of shrinking, one of surviving, one of loneliness disguised as love. But tonight, unexpected, unplanned, unreal in the best way, she realizes she's standing at the beginning of something different, something warm, something safe, something hopeful. Luca squeezes her hand lightly, grounding her. Emily? Yes? Whatever comes next. You won't be facing it alone. She smiles, soft, trembling, real. I don't think I've ever wanted that as much as I do right now. He squeezes her hand again. Then let tonight be the beginning. Emily exhales, a gentle, steady breath. It is. The beginning. The shift. The first step towards something new and beautiful, with Luca sitting beside her, warm and steady. The night unfolding quietly around them, Emily finally feels it. Not fear, not doubt, not survival, but peace and possibility, and the soft, breathtaking warmth of a happy ending beginning right in front of her. What did you think of their story? Share your thoughts in the comments. On a scale from 0 to 10, what's your rating? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories. And check out more emotional stories by clicking on the end screen.